Hello there. If you would like some hot cocoa for one, then there is a weapon that you can enjoy a drink with marshmallows on it. So we are here to overview a holiday pistol weapon that is really fun to play around with. That is for sure the Coco 45. You can obtain the Coco 45 schematic at the beginning of the third week of the Winterfest season in the event store and is only available as a legendary rarity. It may not be the best in terms of base damage with only 57 at hand flat, but what's so cool about this pistol is that it has a kind of similar firing pattern like the Ghost pistol or the Space Invader. Like its projectiles can go through enemies and bounce around like a ricochet when you shoot it towards the walls and such, and which can be super good when you have big targets in a box or clear out husks in a trap tunnel. So even when the Coco 45 has a low base damage, the bouncing projectiles will make the best out of its damage output. The small downfall with this weapon is that the rounds you shoot with it travels a little slow, but only if you try to use it for long range. This weapon does work best in small areas and tunnels, making it look like a situational weapon. But if you prefer to use it in some way, like you made a narrow trapping path for smashers or crowns of husks, you can possibly use that kind of advantage to hit enemies multiple times with the bouncing projectiles. Really great pistol to have fun with. I had a great time using this weapon while doing the power level 160 missions for my weekly challenges, so let's just go straight to the perking of this pistol. You can tell this is basically another regular crit build on the Coco 45. Not really surprising, I tell you. I have mine with double crit damage and 1 critical rating. Not gonna lie, that's 345% of crit damage is actually pretty high for a pistol weapon. On my screen it shows 570% because I have BLGS on, but we'll get into the loadout after checking out the available perks on this pistol. Second perk slot is reload speed for the quick reload time, and it has a 6th perk of applying affliction status effect. There are other 6 perks that can still be as good for a marshmallow shooting weapon. The headshotting 5 times in a row for a 30% damage buff for 10 seconds is actually alright. This pistol is somewhat accurate enough, and it shoots through enemies as well if you're running into crowds of husks. Another 6th perk is actually a lot better than what I have when I bought the schematic. Hitting one target 5 times will create an area of effect explosion for 70% overall damage, which I think would do fantastic when targeting big monsters like mini bosses, smashers, and other monsters. The one I have on is the Affliction 6th perk. It still does really well when the husks you shoot at survives, and the status effect will finish them off for you by dealing damage during the 6-second time period. I have its element on nature because the Winterfest season is a mutant storm and majority of the missions are ice storms, but you can have it on energy to use it on a variety of elemental enemies or whatever you prefer to have on the Coco 45 depending on what season you want to use this pistol. For the available perks, this pistol can possibly have triple crit damage, which is really astounding for a pistol that has a very low base damage. It definitely tries its best to make it out of that by not being able to deal the highest damage output, but deals a great amount of critical hit damage. I am well aware of the overall damage affecting the crits and helps out, but there aren't that many weapons that are able to have triple crit damage. So that is one of the reasons why the Coco 45 is pretty special in this case. I mean, it can obviously have quadruple overall damage on all of these 4 perk slots. Magazine size can be a pretty good choice if you would rather shoot more rounds than reloading a lot. There is a fire rate perk on the first slot if you feel like shooting fast, but I personally don't recommend it because the current fire rate of 4.5 is already good enough for an auto pistol. And on the 5th perk slot, you can have damage to miss monsters, which will definitely complement so much with the AoE 6th perk when facing against big targets with high health. And the last perk I want to point out is the headshot damage on the 4th perk slot. Like I said before, this pistol is somewhat accurate, not as accurate as the Whisper 45, but if you are a sharpshooter that likes to aim down sights a lot, then maybe you can have this perk on, but for now I have mine on crit damage because I'm not that great in aiming. That should be it for the perking of the Coco 45. I'll still be using whatever perks I have now because it's a regular crit build that I do think most of the player base uses. They usually just try out the gun without using a loadout that can boost its output. Speaking about the loadout, there is one that can definitely make this pistol really fun to use. Well, I did mention before I had Beetlejuice on lead that can buff the crit damage on pistols and SMG weapons by a ton. With double crit damage point blank, it makes the hit damage 345%, but with her on lead, makes it 570%. Heck, with triple crit damage on that pistol will surely make it approximately above 680%, I think. With totally rocking out as the team perk for this loadout, I have Battle Beat and Fumble to activate it. Hip Shot perk increases pistol and SMG overall damage by 17%, helps out with the crits too. Locked and Reloaded really does something great in this loadout because I do reload a lot. Its whole clip is just 8 rounds and it shoots fast enough for it to run out quickly without fire rate, so getting that 50% weapon damage buff every time I reload is worth the time during combat. And lastly, Bomb Suit for some added armor because this is indeed a strong loadout but also very squishy and very little base health. A very simple TRO loadout, I'd say. The team perk giving a huge buff of increasing critical rating and healing you for a small amount would do so much if I were to run a triple crit damage Coco 45. And which brings me into what other few heroes you can also use to fit your taste. If you don't want to rely so much on RNG football spawns, you can have main stage Quinn instead of varsity hero. You can just harvest metal that is available almost anywhere depending on the mission zones you are planning to play on. Having sub wafers with you as a consumable item is great in case you want to use it in any situation. Gunblazer Southie increases your pistol and SMG damage by a bunch for 4 seconds every time you use phase shift. Well, I do know I should have placed him in my loadout for maximum damage instead of added armor, but I've mentioned in a couple of videos before, I'm not in a hurry or a hyperactive person that moves around too much. The damage buff is great. You can definitely 100% have him in yours, but for a lazy person like me, I'd rather keep myself alive. In my honest opinion, it looks cool. The muzzle of this pistol is basically a coffee mug with a Christmas tree sticker that suits itself into being a part of the holiday weapon set, projectiles bouncing off walls and structures and goes through enemies. It's like the Ghost Pistol and Space Invader merged into one weapon, kind of an improved version of the Whisper 45. Of course, the Coco 45 does have a few downfalls, but still, it is a very fun weapon, especially in short-range combat in tunnels. I highly recommend picking it up whenever it's available in the event store. You won't regret it. Thank you for checking out this video. Look out for the next one. Take care of yourself and love yourself.